What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the AJC, your channel locked in and dedicated to La Vecchia Signora. And yes, that old lady's a little bit lost right now. She's a wandering out in the woods, and we gotta go find her. We gotta hunt her down, track her down, and save her. It's a little bit scrambled, all right? But we're gonna talk everything. I know I could see the comments already. What's going on? Never seen a late night show. It's been a long time, but I'm actually happy to do this one and happy we were able to make it work because my man, Anthony Locascio, reached out last week and said, hey, man, we got to get a podcast going because there's so much going on right now around Juve, and I'm glad we were able to make this thing happen. And Anthony, my man, fresh off his trip to Canada, checking it out. How's it going, man?
Oh, bro, so happy to be here once again. Thank you for having me on again. Last time we did this, it was a late night one for me, so I appreciate you looking out for your boy in the Southern Hemisphere. I had the best time in Canada, and did New York the week after as well. The best 2 weeks of like working in comedy of my life, and it needs to happen way more often. Also, I was gonna say, I love the entrance music to the pod. Bro, it's so good. It gets me so G'd. I was listening to the pod in the car the other day, and the entrance music, the opening music came on, and I realized that I was fucking speeding. And I'm like, dude, I gotta stop listening to this in the car, because this is too much, like, this is like
man.
WWE theme.
I love that. I love that intro. I'm just sitting here doing the drums in the green room, just getting hyped up.
Yeah.
That's from our boy Sev, member of the army for a long time, then joining the cast actually. But he put that together. That's all him, and it's a thing of beauty. But I'm with you, man. It gets me hyped up. Gets me hyped right up.
Although our team currently doesn't deserve such a hype-worthy fucking track, right?
Yeah, that's kind of the thing. It's like we get all hyped up, we do our pre-game shows, and then we watch the game, and then we got to come back for therapy. That's been the cycle for quite some time now. But what are we going to do? Fiorentina's the big one. We got Iserman 35 saying Fiorentina's going to thrash us this weekend. Look, the truth is, it could go either way. That's how Jekyll and Hyde this Juve team has been. It's like, even in wins, it's rather unconvincing, but we could pull it out. Or we might get slapped like we did at Atalanta. I don't know who's going to show up for Juve, but everybody's kind of all over the place with their thoughts. I want to get your just general thoughts on this season currently, the players, Thiago Motta, which is a very, very hot topic, obviously. But have you been managing through this season, and what are your thoughts on this team?
I mean, where do you start, Alberto? Where do you, like, okay. I'll put it like this. It's been about 5 years of suffering, and different kinds of suffering every season. But this season, maybe for the first time since we hired Maurizio Sarri, I was excited. I had fantasy booked Thiago Motta to be Juve's coach from his first 6 months at Bologna. From reading all that stuff about his thesis, everybody thought he was crazy. I thought, you know what, man, this guy has the pedigree. He speaks 4 languages. He won the Champions League with 2 different clubs in 2 different decades. He's been successful everywhere he's been as a player. He has that kind of central midfield. You know how all the central midfielders, the kind of defensive, that kind of player ends up becoming the best coaches when they become coaches. And I just thought the synergy of it works perfectly. Like, he wasn't a particularly offensive coach. He was a coach that brought balance. And I just thought, what a way to revolutionize what we do on the pitch. It's been a fucking disaster. It's been an unmitigated, like, I would never have predicted. Also with the Mercato that we had. I wrote it as a big angry comment on your post the other day. But the Mercato that Giuntoli did on paper was fantastic. I'm talking about the summer one. Let's not talk about the Lloyd Kelly situation. If you break it down just objectively, the players that he brought in, there's no reason why any of these players should fail. In fact, the ones that had the most likelihood of not showing up were the ones that ended up showing up. Like Kefren Turam, there was never going to be a guarantee that he was going to be able to step up to this level. Maybe the same you could say about Di Gregorio. maybe you could say the same about Conceição. But the other guys, Koop Miners, Nico Gonzalez, and Kalulu. Kalulu's been good. Don't take me the wrong way there. But those two guys in particular, we're talking about 4 or 5 years each of Serie A experience, being at the very, very top, delivering for two competitive teams, being mainstays in their national teams. These are top professionals. There's no reason why they should have failed, and I don't believe that they are failures. I don't believe that any of these players should leave. I think that it's the coaching. It's got to be, right?
I've been fighting the fight for Giuntoli. I agree with you. I said, you take me back to that summer, and every damn time I will give you a yes on all the moves he pulled. Every single time. We're staring down the barrel, and I know fans don't give a shit about the books, but the reality is that had to be handled. The fact that he brought in what he did and cleaned up the books all simultaneously, for me, he's done his job. The part of his job he probably got wrong was hiring Motta. And even on that degree, I also chose Motta in the summer. And I was like, bring me this guy. I would have never, just like you said it perfectly, I would have never guessed it would have wound up like this. I would have never expected it. Where I start to kind of dive into Giuntoli a bit too is what the hell has happened, because where there's smoke, there's usually fire. And there's a ton of smoke around locker room issues. Giuntoli plays a part in that too. The fact that we were chasing our tail, so to speak, with guys like sending Danilo a loan for Rugani that did nothing for us financially and took away some depth. All these things kind of also put a limelight on him as well. But Thiago Motta, like, what struck me the most is like he's become arrogant almost about it. And like I never would have expected the arrogance. Like, you can't play Daniele Rugani. You can't keep Danilo around for 5 more months and use him as an outside piece. Like, we signed Lloyd Kelly because of no depth, and you got that on an obligation, which everybody hated that move. But it stems from, like, is the coach just unwilling to work with these guys? Fagioli, like, we couldn't have played him while Luis can't stay fit for one game. And Cope Miners is struggling like nothing I've ever seen. So I just don't understand where Motta's coming from. The thing for me is, the second I see Cope Miners as a right winger, that guy needs to be put in jail. Because that's where I draw the damn line. Like, that's jail time. Cope Miners as a right winger, that's where I see this coach, he's finally come unglued, and that's the end of it.
I think so too, bro. And you know what? In the whole, because as we've agreed, I'm not putting any of this on the players. The players are good. The squad is good. You have to look at the management, and you're looking at Giuntoli and Thiago Motta. Now, we have data. We have quite a bit of data from Giuntoli from 10 years at Napoli, and we have a little bit of data from Thiago Motta at Bologna. If you look at their histories, if we just take the getting rid of players that perhaps are interrupting the flow of the team, they are older, so they have a little bit more, like the getting rid of Danilo, the getting rid of Rugani, the getting rid of Fagioli, these things that you're saying, that they just kind of just toss them out. I don't remember Giuntoli ever really doing that at Napoli. There was a year where they did a total refresh, where Koulibaly left, and you know, a few of the older statesmen left. I think Mertens and Insigne, they all got rid of them in the same window, and they brought in Kvaratskhelia and Kim Min-jae, and we saw how that went. He totally trusted Spalletti in that season. If you look at Thiago Motta's track record at Bologna, the first season that he came in, he took over from Mihailovic, and for a little while they were not very good, but then eventually they became really, really hard to beat. And one of their mainstays was Marko Arnautovic. But Marko Arnautovic is an older head. Marko Arnautovic is a bit of an outspoken character. As soon as Marko Arnautovic started kind of going against Motta, despite the fact that he had been really good for him in that 6 months, Marko Arnautovic is out.
Yeah.
So I really think if we're pointing the finger of blame at anybody that might be that kind of totalitarian dictator, I think it's got to be Thiago Motta. Like, there's no That's just what logic says to me.
Yep. And I'm with you. Like, and for me, this is the part that's infuriating, because we would have picked Motta going back to the summer, but I've literally felt this entire season it's not the same guy. It's like we don't have the same guy. Now, in a sense of this, what you bring up with Marko Arnautovic, I guess we're seeing that to a much bigger scale, a way bigger scale in terms of who's out, who's in.
I kind of think it might be the same guy though, bro.
In terms of what I mean
finish
is in
your
terms
thought,
of
sorry.
like the formations, in terms of adapting, in terms of game preparation, I saw a completely different guy, because I followed quite a bit of their games as he started to get rumored for Juve, of course, which was early on in the season. So I was like, okay, let's see what he's got. Well, cycling between three setups, changing the width of the team, sometimes playing a little bit more narrow depending on who he's playing against. Some things he did get wrong, which still we see are substitutions. Some of his substitutions have been god awful and never impacting a game. But the sheer stubbornness with players and this setup, I would have never expected. I thought he would have adapted. I thought he could have changed, cycled, and seen what's gone wrong, what's working, what's not working. I feel personally he's more hung up on the personalities. I think he's more hung up on, hey, guess what? Colt Miners is a yes man. He never talks back to me. I'm going with this guy because that's what I want. When in reality, he's like bottom of the pecking order for midfielders based on what he's done. And part of that is also Motta force feeding us that on a 10 when he's not a 10. And I just feel like he's playing this personality game. Our captain's armband was passed around like a joint at a Snoop Dogg concert, man. That's like, I've never seen anything like it. It's no surprise to me we have players rumored that a family member or a friend of players is saying that these guys just don't know, like they're unhappy, they're unsettled. It's like you could be starting one game, you could be completely out of the project the next morning.
Yeah, I saw that rumor where one of the players, an anonymous player, said, "Oh, I can't stand Motta. We don't know what the fuck's going on." That stuff could all be conjecture. We don't know how much truth lies in that, but
would you be surprised? Probably not. We might have lost Anthony for a second here. Let's see if we can get him back in. By the way, I just want to take this second to remind everybody, get your Storm the Barn questions. We don't have to wait for a specific time, all right? Fire in the Storm the Barn questions as they come, all right? And we got a lot of comments in here about Fagioli, Danilo, and Chiesa should have never been forced out. That's a spine of a team right there. You've got Chiesa was a mess, an avoidable one. Avoidable for sure, such a shame. With the finances having been key, we got Motta on half the wages of a bigger name coach. Plus, coming off the season he had, it seemed the smart gamble. Absolutely. It absolutely did. And like we said, we would have gone back to that summer, would have picked him. He was one of my picks. It's just tough. I would have never guessed it to have been this way. Now, where I think we see the differences here are Giuntoli. I see Giuntoli as maybe giving too much leash to Motta, because Anthony made a great point stating that with Napoli, Giuntoli, he gave Spalletti what he needed, whatever he wanted, and he went after it. He's kind of doing the same, and he's also following suit, I think, with these guys getting pushed out. Of course, he's not going to have a problem with them if it's cleaning up wage bill, if it's bringing in some capital, but maybe he shouldn't be going with that, and maybe that's counterproductive to culture and building a culture around this team. So there's a lot to kind of break down, and there's so many layers to what's gone on, even if it's just one season, and the first season with Thiago Motta and Giuntoli there. We got Anthony back. I just kind of going through some points, reminding everybody get their questions in at any time. They're Storm the Barns, but I was kind of speaking to what the point you made about Giuntoli and how maybe it's a detriment, because I do agree with you. What he did at Napoli, based on the data, was give Spalletti what he wanted, what he needed, etc. And maybe he's obviously trying to do the same with Thiago Motta, but maybe if those forced moves out and whatnot are actually counterproductive to that culture. And we're still struggling, I think, in the actual environment at Juve, no matter who the coach is.
Oh, no doubt about it, bro. You know what? You know what the most telling thing is, and just to jump on that point that you just made, it wasn't just Giuntoli didn't. Giuntoli's kind of like Giuseppe Marotta, right? He doesn't have kind of his own idea. He's a sporting director in the truest sense of the word. He doesn't have his own ideas of football. That he's not a coach. But what he has done is he's chosen the right coaches and he's backed them to the hilt, and it worked with. It didn't work with Carlo Ancelotti, but it worked with Spalletti. It worked with Sarri. It worked with Benitez. It worked. I think he was towards the tail end of Walter Mazzarri's Napoli as well. So like that's what he does. So when they chose Motta, based on whatever criteria they chose Motta for, Motta has every say, right? But to your other point, every time I listen to podcasts or just general football discussion about Manchester United, I can't help but feel seen as a Juve fan, because what's clearly going on at Manchester United is it doesn't matter what coach you get in there, it doesn't matter what players you get in there, the apple is rotten from the core because you've got people in charge who don't know what they're doing. It's a little bit different at United because there's a gigantic Sir Alex Ferguson shaped hole there. You can't really say what it might be at Juve. My best bet, which might segue into what we wanted to talk about later, is that for a few years, there's been a big fat Andrea Agnelli shaped hole at Juve. Now, the man might have made some pretty big mistakes. He flew a bit too close to the sun. But this is what happens when you have a leader. Like if it was Andrea Agnelli still president, you wouldn't have radio silence after these big losses the way we've had with the current management. No, none of those managers appearing in front of the media, nobody giving interviews about anything. It's not up to the sporting director. It's not up to Giuntoli to give the interviews. It's up to the president, the guy that fucking fell asleep in the middle of the game.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
It doesn't even look comfortable.
Nah. Nah, man.
You're right.
Having said that, Juve have a few options moving forward, because I think we can just pull the cat out of the bag here between both of us. There's no way Thiago Motta is going to be the coach next season. No way.
We got to get into this before we dive into the rest of it, and there are still some, and I was talking to you in the green room and I just said I really don't see it, and I haven't seen it for quite some time, but I really don't think that you can keep him no matter what happens in these remaining 10 games. I really just don't think you can. I think it's been a mess. It's been a disaster. It should never feel this way if you have the right guy there. And this much smoke around players being unsettled, us being able to see it without being behind the scenes is actually massive, because usually when rumors like this come out, you're kind of like, oh yeah, maybe not. Like, nobody can doubt that based on what we're seeing and the Jekyll and Hyde performances, consistency, players. Like, if we feel frustrations to this degree from the outside, I could only imagine being involved on the inside. Like, guys being played completely out of position. They're getting roasted by media. Nobody's coming out there to make any stance, to say anything about anything whatsoever. It's just, from a player's perspective, I don't see where the leadership really is and what it's doing and what would be like protecting these guys from jumping at the first offer. Like, even a guy like Cambiaso, he jumped right away. He went and made an agreement with City immediately. And I'm just saying,
I'm not sure how much I believe that kind of stuff.
Well, when his agent comes out and admits it and says, he damn right sounded angry that Juve didn't. He literally said, yeah, it was all there. City went a different direction because Juve took too long.
I don't in situations like this begrudge the players, because at the end of the day, football is so fluid that if you're a Cambiaso and say you love Juve, I think he absolutely loves playing at Juve, and we may see Cambiaso play for Juve for the rest of his career, or we may see Cambiaso play for Juve for a couple of months and go to Manchester City anyway. We don't know, but we can't begrudge the players, because at the end of the day, you got to look after your family, you got to look after your bank account, and an opportunity to play in the Premier League for a club like Manchester City when Juve is clearly a bit of a toxic environment.
And this is what I'm saying.
I totally get it.
So what I'm saying is a guy like that goes out, gets that agreement. His agent came out and said it. He's like, yeah, it was there. City went a different way. They took too long. So what I'm saying is if you don't have that locked in at the top there and you're battling Prem money as it is, I mean, you can 18th in the table, 15th in the tables getting more than your Serie A winner. So it's like you're battling that already. And if you're now in the mix of fighting for Champions League qualification, if these guys get that opportunity, obviously it's going to be very appealing. What on earth over and above playing a Juve would keep them there? I remember the stories that guys like Del Piero told about being in contact, constant contact with the guys at the top when it was, even before Andrea Agnelli. Okay, when you had L'Avvocato calling Del Piero, like almost daily, hey, how are you doing? Yeah, we got a big match, whatever. He's like, man, that match is like 5 days away. Yeah, it's a big one. How are you doing? And Del Piero used to laugh. He's like, yeah, I'm fine. It's 5 days away. We're good. But it's just that personal touch. He was personal with all the players. We don't have that. It feels like everybody's a number right now. It doesn't, like, we just showed a picture of the guy sleeping in the stands. Those guys were temps. They were temps from day one. We knew it. Juve's got a big...
What's that guy's name? Is that Ferrero?
That's Ferrero.
That
That's Ferrero.
Ferrero.
Scanavino's the other guy.
And they're all idiots. They're all idiots. The last boom period that we saw, the management we had Agnelli, but we also had Marotta, and we had Marotta with Paratici underneath him, who before Paratici got a bit too big for his boots, he was very good as Marotta's number 2. He had 3 levels of personality before we even started talking about Antonio Conte or Max Allegri. We're talking about an entire management division of proper football personalities. We don't have anything approximating that now, and anybody blaming Giuntoli is full of shit because he's the only one there actually doing his job.
Doing his job.
Summer,
yes.
What he did, he can't do everybody's job. That's do everybody's job. Sir Alex Ferguson was doing everybody's job at Manchester United after 30 years, and then when he left, Manchester United totally fell apart. It's not how you run a football club.
Exactly.
But the decision to pick Thiago Motta last summer was ultimately flawed. But like we said before, we all saw the logic in it. We want a young coach. We want a progressive coach. If you had offered me last summer Antonio Conte or Gasperini or Mancini or any of these guys that we're postulating might save the club now, I probably would have said no. Maybe Antonio Conte, because I've been praying for him to come back for as long as he's been away for. He stepped down from Juve on my 23rd birthday, and I've never forgotten it. But we all wanted a new face. I think probably a better option, and I don't know how deep you want to go into this, but I think Vincenzo Italiano would have been a much, much better option.
We're gonna get into it. We got to pause for a second because we got to get back because it's tough to get sidetracked because there's so many levels here. But Malta, we're for sure done. There's no way to continue.
We're done. And I am like I said in a comment on your Instagram this week, I am the Juve fan that has given the most. Like, I'm never one for sacking the manager. I hang on to them for as long as possible because I am a supporter, and as a supporter, you have to support. But for the first time in my entire lifetime, like, I didn't even want Ciro Ferrara to get sacked. For the first time in my lifetime, I'm like, nah, this guy, he's done. There's nothing that he can do now.
For me, it's simple. Do your job. If I think that you're doing a piss poor job, I'm sorry. Like, it is what it is. You gotta go. You gotta go. I don't see anywhere near enough positives to cling on to this thing. I felt for a while that those that are saying we need to keep him, it takes time. Lippi said it the best, and it was spot on. Time is not a luxury afforded at the big clubs, especially Juventus. You have a job to do, and you must do it. When you look at Del Piero, he says, not just the players, even as a manager, you must always improve at Juventus. Period. I have not seen this team give me enough, consistently enough, to feel confident in continuing with this guy. The noise around all the outside stuff that may be happening, maybe not, is just something else that's concerning that we don't really know, not being involved behind the scenes. But just gauging him from a working standpoint, it's nowhere near good enough. I think the arrogance that is now kicked on tells me that he already knows that it's going to end. That presser after the Atalanta match was a horror show, man. Disgusting. Like, I don't ever want to hear anybody.
Let me chuck you a question, Alberto. Let me throw a spanner into what you're saying. How many matches we got left of the season?
10.
Serie A. Is it 11? 10. Say they win every single one of them. Say they win all 10. Champions League qualification wrapped up. They win all 10, including beating, I think we got Roma and Lazio.
Yeah.
In the run-in. So they win all 10, concede like 2 goals, players start playing well, things turn around. Do you still keep him? Or is the die cast already?
That is a situation where knowing what goes on behind the scenes would probably make the decision. Because if it's still a mess back there, I'd be kind of fucking pissed. But the results are what speak. So I don't see it happening. But if that happened, if it was as unconvincing as the majority of our victories have been this season, I'd still feel comfortable saying goodbye. If it all of a sudden was like a lightning bolt struck every single one of these guys and they're bawling out, then I say, okay, let's take a look at this and maybe give them that extra season. But I'm going to flip a question back to you as, let's say we win those 10 games. And let's get your answer first. Would you keep him? Would you not if we win those 10 games? But would it matter on the candidates available in the summer?
It always does. That's the telling thing. It's always about, okay, you sack this guy, sure, but the ship can't steer itself. So who do you bring in? I'm not super excited about any of the potential candidates that have been speculated between you and me. Should we go into it? Should we go into the possibilities?
Okay, yeah, let's break. I mean, holy Christ, we got a lot of candidates here all of a sudden. We got Igor Tudor. You got Roberto Mancini apparently available and ready to go. Apparently talks at advanced stages. You got Conte. Nobody really knows what the deal is with him in Napoli. I think Napoli's going to have a lot of money available this summer, and they're going to spend probably half of it to get him to stay and back him. You've got Gasperini going into a final contract year, no renewal. He could be in there. There's reports about Palladino, which a lot of fans want Palladino there. And then you brought up somebody that you would like to see that I don't necessarily agree, but Vincenzo Italiano. What do you think about all these guys? You said you're not sold on all of them?
I'm kind of, for different reasons, I'm not sold on any of them. And we'll do it quickly. Roberto Mancini has never been a top level club coach. You might throw Manchester City at me. He coached Manchester City when Manchester United were on the downfall, when Chelsea were on the downfall, when Manchester City started coming up. And yeah, he did well and he can do it, but he's not a game-changing coach that we need. Gianpiero Gasperini. Bro, if this was 5 years ago, shut up and take my money. But the guy's 68. The guy has got way too much work to do, and there's too many risks for him to implement a 3 at the back system, for us to completely revamp the squad for a 3 at the back, and for it to not work out a year down the track and then have to go again. Forget about it, right? Forget about it. He's too much of a risk and he's too old. Antonio Conte, any day of the week I'd take him. Do we see him leaving Napoli after a year? Potentially. Maybe Aurelio De Laurentiis fucking sticks his finger in his eye and they get into an argument and Antonio Conte walks. But it's a big if, man. It's a big if, and it's an if that, like, I'd not be willing to back. Tudor is an interesting case because he's already been at Juve. He was Pirlo's assistant for a year. He's shown that he is a quality coach. He obviously played for Juve, but we don't know if he can be that top level of coach. We don't know. Same with Palladino. I would be very upset if they went with Palladino. I dare say they should stick with Thiago Motta instead of going with Palladino.
And this is where I'm kind of at, and I've been kind of vocal about, is like, I'm done with guinea pigs and experimenting and whatever. Totally. I want some serious, like, I want a serious CV if we're getting somebody. Like, it's time to stop cheaping out. And we kind of did cheap out with Motta, and you know what? I was for it in the summer, but now I've learned my lesson. And one guy would probably have me completely go backwards on my rule. And it's okay, everybody, because there's always exceptions to rules, okay? But my rule was no more returns. No more returns. But you know what? For Antonio Conte, I'm putting it out there, I would. And the reason is, now more than ever, if it became available, because of what I'm seeing from complete lack of culture and that toxic environment, he's exactly what you need because of the vacancy above that position.
You're right. You're 100% right. And he is the only, in my mind, he is the only guarantee. It'll be so hard to get him. But if he comes in, man, they said this guy was over the hill with his football ideas. He came out and he did something new. They said that he couldn't succeed outside of Italy. They said that he couldn't succeed at international level. They said that he couldn't implement a non-3-5-2 system. Look what he did at Napoli for the first half of the season.
That was the kicker for me. When I saw that this year, I was like, I'm done, man. I was like, are you kidding me? I was like, that's it. Yeah, I was like, now he's and I know that everybody throws out okay, so he threw the middle finger to Agnelli there and whatever, and Agnelli gave it back to him, etc. They had their differences, and I know that everybody throws his Champions League record at him and everything, but I'm going to tell you this. We gotta nail it down at home before we're thinking Champions League. Okay? Yeah. So even if it is 2 years, 3 years, and it's a hard rebuild like he left us with previously, you're still better off than chasing your tail with these guys that don't have CVs, that don't have experience, that haven't done, like, you're still better off. So he can come in hot.
Without Antonio Conte, you do not have the likes of Andrea Barzagli, Giorgio Chiellini, Leonardo Bonucci, Claudio Marchisio, etc., as bona fide champions that have winning experience and can marshal the squad and teach the new players how to be winners for the next decade. Because those guys that I just mentioned, they hadn't won shit before Antonio Conte came to Juve. Buffon had, Del Piero had, but other than that, who? Nothing. Yeah. So, you bring in Conte for a couple of years, you get him to show the Locatellis and the Gattis and the Bremers and the whoever you might assume stays, how to be a champion, how to be a serial Serie A winner, and then you're set up for the next few years. And then, instead of going and getting the safe option of a new Max Allegri after Conte inevitably leaves, then is when you take the guinea pig route. Then is when you go, all right, we've built a squad full of winners. Let's give this up-and-coming, super niche ideas coach the reins and see what happens. But for now, it needs to be a guarantee. The problem is, I don't see any guarantees.
Well, and that's the thing. So I see the comment in there that it didn't last. He's playing 3-5-2 again at Napoli, and I want Conte this coming in from Marco. But the thing is, he's actually alternating. If you look at his games, he played Fiorentina 3-5-2.
He changed because of injuries. He
played 3-5-2 against Fiorentina, and then the match prior, he played 4-3-3 against Inter. He played 3-5-2 the game before that, 3-5-2 the one before that, and then 4-3-3 for 2 before that. He's going based on the personnel. You know who isn't setting lineups based on personnel? Thiago Motta. Colt Miners, right winger. All right, so listen, Conte would be hard to pass up now. I thought it was hard to pass up last summer, but I kind of feel like maybe they had a deal. Like Conte was wanting it too. Like when you hear Delivio, you hear Torricelli, you hear all these guys that are around him at all these events, like the 96 Champions League winning team getting together for a dinner, and all these guys say the same thing. Even Lippi saying if Juve calls, he will gladly answer. So that tells me when everybody there is saying it, he wanted it. We might have already had a deal.
He will be back.
We might have already had a deal with Motta, and maybe that's why I went down, or we flat out decided to go with Motta because of Cicoria. One way or another, we made the decision. Conte might not be available this summer. Now we get to the other guys. I'm really iffy on, like, Gasperini, I'm leading to no. I'm leaning towards no on Gasperini. But I can understand those who have this feeling about bringing him in. Okay, youth sector coach, played for the Juve youth sector as well. Didn't get a game in for the senior side, but yes, there's history there. But this guy's got maybe a bigger problem with personalities than Thiago Motta. And he needs full board backing.
Sure. Thiago Motta's never hung out any of his players to dry in the media by the way he did with Papu Gomez or Ademola Lookman. He's never done any kind of shit like that. I think Gasperini gets away with his antics and some of the shit that he does because he is at a club like Atalanta, which is a million times more well-run than Juve. It's not going to happen at Juve.
When you get into this, like, Gasp needs, like, full-on backing, and you're automatically taking his side over players because it's not a matter of if, it's when. He's going to get into it, guys. He's going to call them out. He's going to put them on blast, even if it isn't their fault. As we learned with the Lookman scenario, and then he had egg on his face when the player came out with the explanation. When it comes to Gasperini, though, the guy is like, as somebody said to me, would you not want your players' value to increase and everything, etc.? And I said, listen, you know how you get that? From winning. When your team's winning, you're winning and guys are doing well. Because if the guys aren't doing well, you're not winning. So bring me a coach that is closer to a guarantee with a bit more pedigree, especially like a guy like Conte. It's not even in question for me if it's Gasperini or Conte. Because it was asked to me today, Gasperini or Conte. I said, it's not even close.
What a ridiculous question.
It's worlds apart. It's worlds apart.
Alberto, quick pop quiz. How many Scudetti has Gasperini won? You can get away with the shit. Like he's what he's done at Atalanta over the last decade is unequivocally amazing. But we're talking about apples and oranges here. The guy is 68. I don't think it's a good idea. Having said that, it's gonna happen, bro. I think he is by far the most likely successor to Motta. I think in terms like if I'm placing bets right now, it's him.
Here's the interesting thing in all of this. Andrea Agnelli and the rumors. Because if this actually were to pan out, because it actually very well could be. I've been telling people for months now, if you're going to see this aggressive a push, like financially and with moves and some moves that are kind of questionable, I said for a while, to me, it kind of reeks like Exor and Elkan are looking to sell. It's felt like that for a while. I get the family thing. I get the connection. I get the ties. And we're hearing that he doesn't want to do that. In the background, there's a reason Villar Perosa and that beautiful event at the start of every year hasn't happened for years. And that's because of the battle that's going on between all assets and the family. And nobody's really talking about it. But that's been happening. Agnelli trying to come back in. The fact that Exor has pushed so hard these past 2 days to deny things kind of tells me that they are looking to sell. And it's because they are so silent on fucking everything. And the fact that they chose this to come out and be like, no, we can't let this rumor sit there and dwell. Of all the rumors that have swirled around Juve for as long as I've followed them, they have to shut this one down so aggressively. It kind of leads me to believe that they are looking to move. Elkan needs funds. He needs backing. I'm not putting much stake in Red Bull and all that, Klopp, although it would be wild to think about Agnelli and Klopp. Regardless, Tether, the one that has come in, that is already there with 8% shares. They said a lot of key things in a short period of time with their CEO, Devasini. And I've heard a lot about Agnelli and Devasini connecting multiple times, and they're working on it. Agnelli's wanted back from day one. Everyone's known this. It's like, what are we talking about? And nobody is denying it across the board. They're like, oh yeah, absolutely. Today we hear that they're bringing up, well, he's banned until November. That doesn't stop him from getting backing and getting majority shares. He just can't be in a role acting until the middle of November of 2025. But if he were to come in, Calvo's for sure gone. We know the history there. I mean, Agnelli stole his woman, okay, married her, whatever. He's gone. See you later. Giuntoli, would he even remain? I don't know. I
think Giuntoli would absolutely remain. I think Giuntoli is going to be there for the next 10 years, regardless. And I'm very happy for it. Everything that you've said, I totally agree with, bro. The Red Bull thing and the Klopp thing, it's very Vince McMahon buys WCW. Like, it's a bit fucking out there. But sure, say whatever we need to say. I think the takeaway is that Agnelli is planning to make a comeback. Whether it is at the expense of his cousin and Exor, we'll see. I don't know if they do. You make a lot of good points, but I think it's a little bit of a leap.
Do you want him back?
Yeah, absolutely. He in my lifetime, he has been the best like the way it ended. Obviously, flew too close to the sun, got rid of Giuseppe Marotta, backed the wrong horse in Paratici, yada yada yada. You would think a businessman as adept as Andrea Agnelli, who we should remember when he became the president of Juventus, he was 33 years old. I'm going to be 33 years old in a couple of months. I can't be the president of my fucking book club. So let's give credit where credit's due, because the man is amazing and the man made some mistakes, but you would assume he's learned from those mistakes. He's coming in with a family pedigree, and he is the next key piece in that jigsaw rebuilding. Giuntoli and him could do magic together. It could be the new Marotta and Agnelli.
Yeah.
Who they pick as coach, though?
I'm good with
either way. We're gonna have to. So the correct me if any of this is erroneous, Alberto, but they're gonna have to get a coach in before the Club World Cup.
Yeah.
Like, that's the idea. They sack Motta just as the season ends. They get a new coach in, and then like a couple of weeks later, Juve go to do the Club World Cup. So the new coach isn't even going to get a proper preseason. The new coach is then going to have to show up on the world stage. We don't even know anything about the Club World Cup. The details have been so scarce that we don't know what it's going to look like or how it's going to go. But assume Juve does, like, there's two ways that it can go. Juve will either embarrass themselves on a global scale, or they will do better than any of us expected, but they're not going to win the thing. So either way, for Juventus, other than for the 25 million euros that we got for qualifying, other than that, it's a total waste of our time.
Yeah.
At which point, we have way less time than is ideal to bring the preseason together with the new coach's ideas and do whatever needs to be done with the squad and the mercato. Like, it's going to be a shit show no matter what.
Yeah. Because like some of the fans are saying, if their intention, because there's been a lot of speculation that it's already decided that Motta will be gone at season's end. They're trying to get by with these 10 games, and that's best case scenario for Juve. because the best way for this to go down is deal with it at the end of the season. Because you're not going to find somebody that's just willing to come in immediately, other than Roberto Mancini, which I don't like making desperate moves. I'd like to do it with clear heads, finish your season, hit your target, and then act. I actually look at the Club World Cup a little bit differently, though, because I actually think that would probably be ideal, because you'll be away from the noise, you'll be away from home. A coach can come in, and these guys got nowhere to be, nothing to do out there while they're there. You got your curfew set, like, get some team bonding, train with just them away from all the noise, and use these games. You'll have games through the Club World Cup that you can use as your exhibition, because you get your 30 million for participating. Anything above that for Juve is bonus. But we have a group where we should come out as one of the top 2 teams. No disrespect to the 2 teams I've never even heard of, but I kind of did. City and Juve should.
Sure? You sure?
Okay, but should is a dangerous word in football, and especially regards to Juventus. But like I said, I actually see it as a positive, because it could be just the coach, the team, and they're away from the noise at home, and you can, that's it, focus on training, and you have games that you can utilize that aren't make or break. And it's actually like a more competitive exhibition. I think that's actually great and would go a long way for whoever the new coach is. And the fact that it's kind of quick is actually better. Nobody gets to sit, dwell, or whatever. It's like, let's go, boys. Back on the horse. And yeah, now you got a new chief. Let's go. I don't know.
I don't entirely disagree with what you're saying, but I think you're taking a very, very optimistic view of it.
And I'm guilty as charged many times.
They go, and fucking half the players that they wanted to sell get injured for a couple of months, and they can't sell them in the Mercato because they've had a big season anyway. And then the new coach has got absolutely no idea what to do, and Giuntoli has absolutely no options in the Mercato because all the players that he wanted to sell are injured. So there's a nightmare scenario on the horizon as well. I have to go shortly, so let me ask you, if you are Cristiano Giuntoli and you're sitting in the hot seat right now, what's your move? Because I have 2 answers to this. I have a short answer, and then I have a backup answer. But
what's my move in regards to
right now, today? What's the play?
If you lose on Sunday, he's gone immediately. Done. Because there's no hope in hell that you win. You get into top 4. If he falls apart in that game too, and it's as bad as Atalanta, it ain't coming back. It ain't bouncing back. So he's gone. I do not sign Mancini immediately. Like, it's caretaker. And from there, I've always said, scan. Juve's got a big, big fucking family. You're telling me that there's nobody that would come in for 10 games that can assist this club in guiding these guys over that finish line for 10 games that we don't have to commit to beyond. You're telling me nobody.
You mean in a coaching capacity?
Yeah. You're telling me there's nobody.
I don't know, bro. I don't know. I'd be pretty scared if they went and said, all right, new coach is Trezeguet. Let's see what happens. Let's roll the dice. You know what I mean? Like, well, you got to have a bit of pedigree.
But he hasn't coached. He hasn't coached, though. But what... You don't think like
he hasn't coached, kind of like that guy Andrea Pirlo who hasn't coached and got given the fucking full season?
Well, and I'm not suggesting that, but I'm just suggesting there's guys with coaching licenses that are amongst the Juve family that maybe, just maybe, would come in. And they don't have to stick around long term, but maybe they would come in and be able to help. Maybe they could have guidance from a senior that could overlook and also help them. Like, we have so many guys that are coaching amongst the ranks. I don't know. To bring Brambilla from Next Gen, I'm against that because they're doing well. He's doing great. Don't break that up. Leave him alone.
No.
Magnanelli, the Primavera coach.
Same for Magnanelli. Same
What
thing.
on earth is this guy? This guy has no. He's gonna have no impact on these. These guys need a shock to the system, man. Like if somebody comes in for 10 games, nothing's gonna change unless this guy comes in and they're like, holy shit, Marcello Lippi is standing right in front of
Magnanelli.
me with Montero right next to him. Giddy up, let's go.
Magnanelli was brought in last season at the start when Juve played attractive football for 40 minutes in one game, and they're like, "Oh my God, Allegri's brought in Magnanelli and he's changed the whole system." That was the funniest, most like
But then,
typical reactionary Juventus fans fucking response. All right,
I think,
before I leave you,
yeah.
this is what I'm doing if I'm Giuntoli. Okay, play number one. You get on the phone. Every single contact that you still have at Napoli, the lunch lady, the kit guy, the fucking accountant, whoever it is, you just subtly tell them, hey, this is what you're going to do. You're going to leak just information, just around the training ground, around the stadium, that Aurelio De Laurentiis, he has been whacking off to photos of Conte's wife, and we've seen him. Whatever you've got to do to cause a rift between Conte and De Laurentiis for the end of the season, so that Conte tears up his contract, tears up his hairpiece, and comes back to Torino. But in lieu of that very ridiculous scenario that your comedian friend from Australia has come up with, I really think that they sack Thiago Motta and they bring in Tudor. Tudor did a pretty good rescue job of Lazio last season. He did a really, really good job at Marseille. He's been around the environment. He has said that he doesn't want to come in for a firefighter job, so don't make him come in for a firefighter job then. Give him a year contract. Give him the rest of this season and give him a year. The one thing that we've seen from Tudor is he's a bit in the Conte mold. He doesn't fuck around. His teams are tough, they're fit, they're strong, and they make it happen. So maybe he isn't the future, but in terms of needing to do a steadying the ship job over the next year and a half while the backroom staff and the presidency and the executive get sorted out with whatever's going to happen with Andrea Agnelli, I think you've got no better option than Tudor right now. Unless, of course, you can get, the De Laurentiis jerking off to the photos thing happening.
My concern would be committing based on the candidates that could come available, especially after I take your advice and actually reach out to people in Napoli and plant that all over the place, because that was just brilliant. But yeah, I don't know, man. I'm iffy on kind of all the candidates. It's a hell of a spot to be in. I don't envy Giuntoli.
Me too. I'm iffy on all of the candidates except for Conte, but he's going to be the hardest one to extract. I'm even iffy on Jurgen Klopp because towards the end of the Liverpool thing, like, he's tired and he clearly does not want to coach anymore, and he doesn't speak Italian. So I don't know what we're doing there. The Italiano thing I didn't get to extrapolate on, but he's not going to be getting out of Bologna anytime soon. But I do think that he was a better candidate than Motta last year because his sample size was bigger. Maybe he didn't have the pedigree of Motta as a player, but we're talking about a guy who rescued Spezia in really, really trying circumstances, then played a totally different brand of football and had Fiorentina purring, making 2 European finals back-to-back in each season. Thiago Motta had no European experience as a club coach.
You make a good case for him. I've always been a no on Italiano, but you make a good case.
Italiano, lest we not forget, was the coach in charge when Dusan Vlahovic was banging in goals every fucking game and looked like the next best thing, and we spent 80 million on him. Just saying.
Yeah, that's another big matzo ball there on Vlahovic.
And he was free until Bologna signed him to replace Motta because Juve were dead set on Motta. He was available. We could have gotten him. His salary would have been probably less than Motta's, but we live and we learn. I'm sure he was on the list. He had to have been on the list. And I hope that he still is on the list. And you know what? Let him get a couple more years under his belt with Bologna. He actually did quite well with Bologna this year in the Champions League. even though like their squad was pathetic compared to every other team. And lest we forget that they're still battling for the Champions League spots while losing Xerxes, Calafiori, and Ferguson was like out for most of the start of the season with his ACL injury. Like, the guy's a gun, man. The guy's a total gun. Of the young guys, he's the only guy that I would take a punt on.
Yeah, I'm sticking to my guns that I want somebody with the CV first, the next coach.
Agreed.
And then we go from there. But he's one to watch for sure. He kind of opened my eyes this year with Bologna, because I'm like, holy shit! I was like, they're even better than last year with a worse roster. Is kind of like an eye opener.
You'd think they'd be fucked, right? You'd think they'd be fucked with a worse roster and Champions League football on top.
Yeah.
You'd think they'd be fucked, but they haven't been.
They had a 31 million euro wage. Think about that. 31 million euro wage last year, and their roster's worse this year, and they're doing better.
They're out of Coppa Italia, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah.
They're out.
Yeah. But it's crazy. He's got them playing good. They look good. They look better. And they're a worse side, so it's crazy. I know Anthony Locascio had to go. What a beauty guest! So it's always fun having him on.
brother.
Hey,
I bought myself 10 minutes. I bought myself 10 minutes.
Nice. Got another 10. Well,
I
then
bought myself 10 minutes.
Let's keep it rolling. Again, reminder, everybody, send those Storm the Barn questions in. If you guys got questions, I'm going to keep it rolling a little bit. I could go a little bit longer, too, after our guest bounce. But, man, we tackled a lot. Like, there's a lot of spots to be looked at with this team, even as players go. Like,
yeah, you know what? That's what I was going to ask you. What happens with the players?
Oh, man. The nice thing is we shouldn't be in a position where we need to sell outside of one. We need one more strong sale, and our numbers should be good. That's granted we reach Champions League. For me, we know who the candidates are going to be if you're talking about one big sale. Otherwise, you're selling multiple at small capital gains. But that's not going to be healthy for this team that's lacking depth to do multiple with small increments of capital. You're going to have to send one big guy out there for a sale. Your candidates are simple. It's Yildiz or Cambiaso.
So you don't think, because it seems like the writing's on the wall that Vlahovic is going to leave.
And I expect about 10 mil in capital there.
In capital is in profit.
Yeah.
So I'm not sure what his amortized value would be at this point, but I think it's like 30 to break
right
even.
Around 30 mil. Yeah.
Yeah. So assume we get, so you're assuming we get 40 for him?
I'm thinking around 40 we'll get.
Yeah. Okay. Fantasy booking hope for me, which is going to make me sound crazy, but I still want to keep him. I love the kid. I think he's awesome. I think under a coach that actually knows what he's doing, we've seen he has all the potential in the world. He's got everything, and he's got a quarter Juventina. I'd like to keep him, and I would be so much more comfortable selling Kenan Yildiz. Honestly.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
Because if you can tell me that for a player who, let's not forget, Yildiz counts as a academy product, even though we stole him from Bayern Munich's academy and he was only in our academy for like a year. Yeah. He counts as an academy product, which means if a Liverpool or a Chelsea or a Man United rock up with 85 million euros, that 85 million euros is pure profit. None of that has to be amortized. None of that has to be counted as anything, which means that's chips to play with at the table, which means with that money, you can go and get Hanko, Adamola Lookman, Tonali. We're talking like, I'm not saying all of them, but you can go and get 2 or 3 players that instantly add major quality to any department of the field that they enter. And these are all players that potentially could come. Yildiz, as much as we love him, he's young, he's raw, there's no guarantees of him. And you know what, man? He's one ACL tear away from becoming a Zaniolo.
Yeah. I just...
You remember we had this chat a year ago about, we spoke about who would you rather see go out of Vlahovic, Bremer, and Chiesa, and I said Chiesa for the exact same reason.
Yeah. I'm always a lock on Bremer. I don't want to see Bremer go anywhere, and it'll be interesting to follow him after the ACL now when he bounces back. But
I think the history with
Cambiasso is going to be
ACL.
Cambiasso is going to be profit, and 65 is not that's not a number to shake at. There's a percentage that goes away because of the sell-on clause, so 15%, I believe, is going to go away.
I think Cambiasso leaves a much bigger hole than Yildiz, because we've got plenty of attackers, and you can bring in another dynamic attacker, and it's okay. But there's no player in the world like Andrea Cambiasso. Seriously, there's no, like, you can bring in another very good left back, but you can't bring in a player that can do everything that he can do. He's totally two-footed. He comes in, he creates play, he builds, he fills the positions. Like, he's a Rolls Royce kind of a player. I would be really, really disappointed if they sold him. Yildiz, I honestly think, front up with anything more than 75 mil, you can have him.
Yeah, like, I'd push for more. I'd push for more with both. I just don't think you're going to see anyone come close to that number for Yildiz. I don't think you're going to see it. It's going to be a decision for Cambiasso because he's going to be getting at a minimum 65, and he will get the offer. I believe he will. I believe City will come back for that in the summer. For Cambiasso, for me, it's like, I get it, two-footed, and I love the guy, love the player. He's one of my favorites on the team. But there's also a lot of games, and I can't attribute it to Motta that he hasn't had impact for like months. And I know that everyone's saying, the injury.
That's just because he's 19, bro. No 19-year-old. We can't look at the Lamine Yamals of this world and think that this is what a 19-year-old should be. This is how players develop. They're good. They're not so good. They learn. They come back. Like, you can't judge a player of that age that with that much scrutiny. Which is why giving him the number 10 and not getting another winger this year was a terrible idea. Terrible idea.
Oh no, I was talking about Yildiz. I'm talking about Yildiz having a higher ceiling. Like, I think he's having a higher ceiling. When I'm talking about impact, I was talking about Cambiasso, who's 25 years old. So it's like, I'm looking at him and I'm thinking, like, you know what? Yeah, he's versatile. He could play both sides, but I only see impact from one side, and it's a side we're not ever really playing him on. Because I think he's less effective from the left, especially because when he plays the left, he just gets dumped into the midfield. Yildiz, I see high potential. And I'm not ready to say goodbye just yet. I think it's a difficult decision, though. I don't think it's easy. But yeah.
Can you hear me?
I can hear you. It's really broken up, though, brother.
I think I'm out, but good chat. Thank you.
Absolutely, man. Always a pleasure. Great time. Great chat, brother. Ciao. Okay, everybody. So we got Locascio. He's a great guest to have on. He's obviously had some interesting takes there. I know all of you were looking at that one with Cambiasso and even Dusan and thinking, you know what? I will stick with Dusan Vlahovic. I mean, the contract would have to get sorted. But hot take, everybody. Hot take. We got Storm the Barnes coming in. Let's get to him. Adams, is everything upside down in Australia? Of course it is. Of course it is. Marco, do you think Chiellini will play a bigger role at the club, or is it Motta's call not to let him? Yeah, so that's another one of the many rumors about what the hell's going on behind the scenes. But the rumors as of late are that Chiellini's going to get fast-forwarded into that ex-Nedved role, which is that bridge between management and the locker room. And it makes perfect sense. And the guy's got his business degree. Like, he's got the business savvy. He's a legend of the club. It all makes sense. Getting things right up at the top has to happen like yesterday. So I'm all in for Chiellini having more of a role. And I don't think it should stop there. I think we should assemble a strong team above Giuntoli when it comes to culture and DNA and grooming and establishing that. That's the route I would go. Tuna, who's the player that steps up to the plate this weekend on the pitch and knocks it out of the park if we win? The one guy I will confidently say, always, Khéphren Thuram. You can pretty much bank that this guy's going to give you everything he has and be that effective player. So I'm going to go with Khéphren. Thuram. Is there any hope for Douglas Luiz? Oh my God, that's been a horror show. I think all signs are pointing to him getting shopped, and we're going to try to make that deal a wash, and we're going to try to break even just to move on. I can't. That's another one of those guys I just can't explain. I cannot explain this, and I never would have guessed it. I was so pumped on the signing because he was fantastic in the Premier League. He wasn't injured for like 3 years running, and to see it go down like this where he can't even stay fit for 2 days, like, is wild to me. Okay, I have no idea, but there are some that still have faith in him because they believe in what we saw when he was playing in the Premier League, but it hasn't been anywhere near close to it. And it goes to show you, like, so what's in fact true? If you guys remember earlier on the show, Anthony was pointing out some good insight on Giuntoli, which is true, which is that he gives his coaches what they want. So if that is in fact true, are you telling me that Thiago Motta had nothing to do with the Douglas Luiz move? I don't believe that. And even when Motta came in, his first presser, he said, I've been involved from day one and Giuntoli has kept me in the loop in its entirety. So to hear reports that he doesn't like Douglas Luiz, he doesn't want to play him, is just so disheartening. And to hear it with all these guys and the guys that we pushed out and went into a season with no depth, it's disheartening. I am completely disheartened and soured on the whole Thiago Motta short tenure this season with Juventus. Right now, as it stands, I see no way that we can continue. And as for Douglas Luiz, if a move was there to allow us to break even, I would take it. Would you? Hit me. Tuna. He made a very solid case for Italiano, and I bet you Lex would agree. Oh my God, yeah. She's probably going to clip that and just, and he actually did make a very good case, and it actually has me wondering. And that doesn't happen too often because I tell you, hard-headed over here, but man, he makes a really good case for Italiano. But I'm not going to break. I will break on one rule, and that is a return. If it is in fact Antonio Conte, I would go that route. If we get him in a couple of years, then I could see a guy like that, depending on what his accomplishments are, maybe going to that and then taking a stab. But maybe just in general, Juve just needs the strongest CV possible despite these feelings and these reads on guys. But I would have never guessed Motta's first year went down the way it did this one. Who is a hell no for you when it comes to the coaching spot? I don't know if anyone is an immediate just hell no. Well, Palladino for me right now is a hell no. I know that he's done well and everything, but like, I guess if I'm saying I want a serious CV next and I don't want to cheap out, I guess that would make all the guys without one a hell no. But really, there is no hell no for me. And I know that Pioli comes in here with Giovanni and he says Pioli's a hell no. I'm going to say this, Pioli, Milan's, all these teams kind of have the same thing going on where you can tell that the issue is not the coach. I said that for Pioli. I actually gave Pioli a lot of credit because he was dealing with a ton at Milan there but he was always trying something, all right? He was always trying to make tweaks here and there, whatever, to change things, to get things done. And I think that the team he won the Scudetto with was not a Scudetto winning team. I actually see him as a little bit underrated, but I'm not saying I want him. It's still not a CV strong enough for me. We have to get this next one right. And for me, if I'm going to talk about Giuntoli, I'm going to say this. He gets one more coach hiring. Because even if he gets that one wrong, I don't know about Giuntoli. Because Anthony Locascio said, I look forward to Giuntoli here for 10 years running. I'm not there. I think he's done his part of the job so far. But another coaching one, if it goes as horribly wrong as this one, that's a spicy meatball there. So could be very, very difficult. And the argument goes on. The argument goes on that, hey, he's not the coach. He just hires them. But others say it doesn't matter. You're in charge of hiring these coaches. You get it wrong, you get the boot too. It ain't easy. It ain't easy, everybody. But let's see. Crazy times. A mess when it comes to rumors all over the place. Fiorentina, do or die for Thiago Motta. Well, I'll keep you in the updates with the news. I'll be here tomorrow morning, okay? I'll be here on Saturday as well. And then Sundays, game day, live, pregame, getting hyped up for the game. And then let's see. Is it in fact do or die for Thiago Motta? Hopefully we win and we don't have to find out. Because the best case for us is getting the job done, qualifying, and let this team make its decisions at season end. Agnelli coming up ain't the answer. Brambilla, leave him alone. And I do not want to commit to Tudor or even Mancini because there might be candidates we would have wanted come available in the summer. So pump the brakes. Let's see. No matter what, with all this, it comes down to one thing. Get the damn job done. Do your job. Beat Fiorentina. Guys, hope you enjoyed this late night show. All right, Anthony Locascio is a great guest. I'm going to be bringing him on some more, and we'll try and do more of these late night ones, all right, whenever time permits. But I hope you enjoyed it. I thank you all. You guys are the best. The AJC Army, second to none. Say it all the time. Drop a like if you haven't already. Subscribe to the channel if you're new here. This is your one-stop shop for everything Juventus. Till tomorrow's news edition, as always, fino alla fine. Forza Juventus. Ciao tutti. For the boys in the members chat, FC25, Rush, let's go now. Ciao, ciao.